Hey, what's up my people, IceRestrict12 here, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 Yu-Gi-Oh decks for the competitive 2021 December format after the introduction of Floowandereeze and Sorcel. Now, we were waiting to see what these decks were going to do. You know, some people said, man, Floowandereeze and Sorcel are going to dominate competitive play. Some people said, you know, they might be like tier 2. Most people agree though that Sorcel and Floowandereeze were going to be top contenders, and I don't think they disappointed. When you look at tournament results, you are seeing a lot of Sorcel, you are seeing a lot of Floowandereeze up there, so these decks definitely had an impact in the meta. But now the question is, where exactly do they stand? Is Sorcel or Floowandereeze the top dog, or are they top 5, or are they just really good decks and they're not really something that you have to prepare for? Now, with that out of the way, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the top 5 decks for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and let's get started. Very well, guys, and coming in at 5th place, it's Floowandereeze. Now, I have to say, I thought Floowandereeze was going to be such a meta-breaking deck. I thought it was going to be number 1, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, Floowandereeze, it is not, in my opinion, the best deck of the format. Now, it is top 5, though, absolutely. And the thing that makes Floowandereeze a top 5 deck is that it has the ability to play some cards that you can't really fit in most decks. Cards such as Dimension Shifter that literally can be a win on their own. Right now, the meta is very graveyard reliant, so if you are able to stop your opponent from putting cards in their graveyard and banish them right away, they don't have a follow-up. They're kind of dead on their tracks. Now, some of the cool Floowandereeze cards that are seeing a lot of play and that are pretty impactful is their boss monster. So Floowandereeze and Empen is such a cool card. Basically does not allow you to activate effects if your monsters are in attack position, which is basically, you know, 99.9% of cards when they are summoned or when they are played. The other thing about Floowandereeze is that once they get going, it's a snowball effect. They just keep going and going and going. They have such a good grind game, and they have such an amazing recursion because when those cards are banished, you're going to be able to get them back into your hand no problem. So banishing a card is one of the best forms of removal, and Floowandereeze can thrive in that kind of environment. The one thing about Floowandereeze, though, is that it is a little bit glass cannony. What I mean by that is that while it is a very powerful strategy, if you are able to stop that first normal summon, a lot of times they struggle to come up with something else. Usually, if you're able to stop your opponent's first normal summon, they will go into more of a defensive strategy, such as getting the wind statue on the field to prevent you from playing the next turn, and that's basically all they do. So it is a little glass cannony. If you can stop that first summon, go for it. Most likely they won't be able to play through it, but other than that, you know, Floowandereeze is still number 5 in my opinion. It's a very good deck, and that's why I'm putting it this high on the list. Very well, guys, and moving forward, we have Dogmatika Invoked. Now, this is such a good deck, and the reason why is because they are able to put really good protection on the field in the form of Mechaba, and with the arrival of Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, this deck makes such a good use of that card. Surprise, surprise, is a strategy that is based on fusion summoning, so they are able to do it very well. Now, for those of you that have lived under a rock for the past couple weeks, Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, the effect says that you can destroy something your opponent controls and destroy something that you control, which 99% of the time is going to be the Phoenix Enforcer itself. And then this card is gonna, if it gets destroyed by battle or card effect, it can recur itself on the following turn. So it is a very unorthodox form of protection, but it's so effective. You can't get rid of something if it's not on the field. So what this card does basically is it destroys something and then it bounces and it's like, I'm out of here. And then next turn it comes back just to do it again, and then it's out of here again. So if you try to get rid of it, if you try to banish it, unless you have something like Call by the Grave that can banish from grave or something like that, this card is going to keep coming back to ruin whatever you can put on the field, and is a quick effect, so it can react to whatever you do. Now, cards like Mechaba have the ability to negate whatever you want to activate as long as your opponent has that card of the same type in his or her hand. And the main monster of the deck, which is Alistair, has this amazing effect where every time that is summoned, it gets you an invocation, which is the spell card that you need to get the strategy going. And the broken thing is that this is not a once per turn. As long as you can keep summoning Alistair, you're gonna keep summoning fusion monsters from your extra deck over and over and over. And unless if your opponent didn't open any hand traps, you can set up a whole board and pass. And trust me, most likely you're gonna get that W. Alright guys, and moving forward, at number 3 we have Lureless Brigade. Now one of the things that makes this deck such a competitive strategy is their ability to play through any interruption that you throw their way. If you've faced this strategy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can Ash them, you can Valor them, and chances are that they're going to be able to end on something. Now usually what they're going for is they're trying to get the Wind statue on the field, which will prohibit you from special summoning anything other than wind monsters, and they're going to try to negate whatever you try to do next turn through cards like Avian Apex, which it just bounces itself back to the hand and negates, you know, something that you're trying to do. And the best part is that since it bounces itself back to the hand, they're going to be able to do it all over again. Now if you're able to stop that route of play, then they can end up something like Nightingale that can attack directly, and it can get pretty big depending on the game state, and they're able to usually just beat you down, attack directly until they can get rid of all your life points. The worst thing is that this card, if it wasn't able to kill you turn 1, it can turn itself into a Divine Arsenal AA Zeus so that it can absolutely finish you off the next turn. Now with that being said guys, one of the things I like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a lot of times these very cutesy archetypes tend to be some of the most evil, rage-inducing archetypes in the entire meta, and this deck is definitely one of them. So one thing also before I move on that I want to mention about this deck is that it's actually pretty affordable. If you want to build a competitive deck and you're a little bit on a budget, as of the time of filming this video, you're looking at probably around $250, maybe a little bit more if you want to go with some of the sidecars that, you know, are seeing a lot of play in this deck. But you can usually build this deck for less than $300. So if you are thinking about getting a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh deck, this might be a good option. Just keep in mind it is a little combo-y, so it will take you a little bit to get used to it, but it is a great strategy. Very well guys, and moving forward at number 2 we have Drytron. Now there are some new kits on the block, but Drytron's still putting in some work. Now the Drytron strategy, if you ever played against them, you know exactly how it goes. If they get to go first, chances are that you're not going to get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! You're probably better off just picking up your cards, side decking, and getting ready for match 2. But if you're able to go first, you might have a chance against this amazing strategy that likes to say no to everything you do through cards like Herald of Ultimateness, which just by sending a fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, you're able to negate anything your opponent activates, whether it's an effect, a monster effect, spell, or trap. And the cool thing is that this card, it is not a once per turn, so they can keep doing it over and over again. Now a lot of players are choosing to play Phoenix Enforcer in this deck because it can totally play it. It has the ability to totally play Phoenix Enforcer without losing some of that consistency due to some of the crazy good search cards that this deck has at its disposal. Now they also have access to some pretty strong monsters in the form of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, or even Nightingale. They're able to make a Nightingale to attack you directly and beat you down that way, but usually the way Drytron works is they're just going to negate everything you try to do. So if they get to go first, it is still a very oppressive strategy to go against. Very well guys, and coming in at number 1 is Sorcerer. Now if you've had the misfortune to go against this strategy, you know exactly what I'm talking about, or if you pilot this deck better than anybody, you know exactly why I'm putting Sorcerer at number 1. I think Sorcerer is an example of kind of the power creep of the game. Usually decks are really good at one thing. They say this is what we're gonna do and we're gonna stick to it and we're gonna be really good at it. But Sorcerer is kind of like a Swiss knife. They can do everything. You like to negate monster effects? Yep, we got that. Oh, you like to banish cards on the field? Yeah, don't worry, we have that as well. Sorcerer just does everything, to be honest with you. And when you pair it with the Tenyi strategy, you're able to just continuously put very oppressive monsters on the field. We're talking about cards that can negate and destroy, like Baron the Floor, and also monsters that can just banish for no reason, like the Draco Tenyi card. I cannot recall the name at the moment, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this one right here. But also, you know, through their their Supreme Sovereign, which if you banish something in your graveyard, just anywhere, or if your opponent banishes something on the field, this card can banish not only something on the field, but also something in your graveyard, potentially getting rid of whatever you were going to use for follow-up next turn. So, you know, just like I said, just Sorcerer is such an amazing strategy that can do everything. And it does beg the question, though, you know, is Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game, is the power creep getting to the point where now we need to make these new strategies that just can do everything, just so that a new deck can compete in this current meta? With that being said, though, if you are playing Sorcerer, I can definitely see this deck getting hit in future ban lists. I'm not saying probably the next one, because they want the deck to thrive a little bit probably for a couple more months, but absolutely this deck is just winning left and right now. Let me tell you, there are ways of stopping the deck with the right cards, but here's where the Tenyi side of the deck kicks in, because if you're able to stop all the Sorcerer stuff, Tenyi can keep them going, and they can still gain access to some very, very oppressive synchro monsters that are gonna ruin your day. All right, guys, so with that being said, guys, please let me know in the comment section, what do you think about these 5 decks? Do you yourself pilot any of these strategies? If that's the case, let me know which one. And with that, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching these videos. It really means the world to me, guys. If you like my content, please go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, and I'll get you in the next one.